Hi YouTube, this is my first video. I apologize for how totally lame it is. As you might guess, I don't own any kind of digital camera at all. I hope to change that in the future. I really only did this because I found I had more to say than the comment system was letting me say, and it was getting very frustrating. So here we go. This is a response to Tom's video about hands and craftsmanship. And Tom, I wanted to say, although I generally distrust and dislike David Brooks, on your recommendation, I read the article and I really liked it a lot. And I felt like it resonated with my life because I moved from political theory, which is obviously where all the Heidegger comes in, to computer programming. In part because I liked the sense of actually producing something I can see and that others can use. There's this pride of saying, hey, I built that. And this excitement of saying, look what happens when you click here. Actually, related to that, inspired by a book on programming as craft, my business words put the word craft right into the name of our company. It's called Crafty Space. Yeah, I cringe at the connotations of crafty, which seems sort of interesting in the current context. I wasn't really involved in that decision, but I definitely like this idea that we're putting right out there. What we do is not science, it's craft. And I think it's interesting that maybe that crosses the virtual divide in a way the article doesn't actually recognize. I think the article sort of acknowledges this, but I want to push the point that we are all currently working in an economic context which limits the space available for craftsmanship. It seems to me that mass production, the whole thing with tailorization and assembly lines and rationalization and robots, has really taken over production at a certain level in a way that you just can't compete with. To use the example that started this whole conversation, think about guitars. No artisan in a small shop is going to compete with, say, Fender at making something like a Stratocaster because it would just be way too expensive and take too long. And so they own that space. And so it seems to me we're pushed to think about spaces for craftsmanship that are left over around or in between or underneath the space dominated by that mass production. And so examples of that are, for example, really high-end custom products. There are these little shops very carefully making these really beautiful guitars that are significantly more expensive than the mass-produced ones that they're not really competing with. They get around the mass production by going above it, higher end and more custom. And then another space is where something needs to be repaired, right? I mean, there are guitar repair shops because Fender and Gibson are not going to do guitar repair. It's too customized. It's too individual. Although I think we need to recognize that the space for that is in part constrained, as the article points out, by the price of repair as opposed to the price of replacement. A lot of repair is getting squeezed out now because it costs too much to do that kind of custom repair work relative to the quite cheap cost of just buying another one. So that's another place where you can see that big mass production context limiting the space for craftsmanship, although also enabling it. And obviously, there's a link between those two in that if you buy this really nice, high-end, custom-made guitar, you're a lot more likely to pay to have somebody repair it than to go and get another one. So those go together. I think another space is the one you pointed out, which is folks who are very geographically located, right? You're not going to buy a new house because the electrical system isn't working right. You're going to pay somebody to come in and fix that. Although, as Bonnie, I think, very correctly pointed out, that's a space that might get commoditized if somebody thought there was enough money in there for it to be worth bringing in folks and standardizing it, which is the ongoing risk that we all face as artisans. And then there's one other point I want to make, which is, as I was thinking about all this, it occurred to me that this conversation connects up with the conversation you were having with, is it Josep, the artist, who had pointed out that really interesting thing about how art and design have started to move over the last century or so towards revealing the means of production rather than concealing it. And it seems to me that these might be related, that perhaps part of what's driven that is that mass production is so good at creating slick products which are all basically the same and all conceal how they were produced, that a way of competing with that is to valorize and add value to things that are custom and that show the craft underlying them. And so that may not just be a coincidence that that's how things have gone recently.
So that's what I had to say. And once again, my apologies for the really lame visual quality of this so-called video. All right, bye.